Your grades, they aren't important. Okay, that's kind of a lie. But we were all once told study hard in school, get to a good university, get a good job, and live happily ever after. But have we actually taken the time to think about what's the deeper meaning in that statement? Exactly, there is no deeper meaning in that. It is in fact a very shallow statement. So what you're telling me is that we're just supposed to eat, sleep, exercise, shit, study, go to university, work 9 to 5 every day, travel 2 weeks out of the year, buy a house, then have kids and die? I don't really want to live my life like that. It doesn't give me any fulfillment. You might be wondering what this random 16-year-old on the internet knows about the world and society and blah blah blah. Truth be told, I don't have all the answers. I'm still trying to figure it out. But what I can definitely say is that your grades aren't as important as you think. When I was still a young boy or a young whippersnapper, like some would say, I've always been told I was very gifted or very smart. As a result, when I went to primary school, my grades plummeted because I thought that having the smart and gifted label placed on me meant I could just slack around and not work hard. And because of that, I didn't do particularly well for my examination to progress to secondary school. In the early parts of secondary school, it was more of the same. I almost got held back for 3 years straight. That should really give you an indication of how academically inclined I was. However, I always knew deep down inside I could be one of the best students in the whole school if I just decided to put in some effort. Despite my horrendous grades, I still didn't really care as by that time I had already been accustomed to failure. It was also during the holidays in 2021 where I started my first part-time job that I realized what school teaches doesn't really align with what society requires. Now, of course, I do understand that learning fundamentals for every single subject is important in order to find the one you are most interested in, but it just didn't sit right with me, and thus I had to dive deeper into the rabbit hole. I found that school teaches you to be more book smart rather than street smart. I realized at my job that I couldn't use the quadratic equation or the redox reaction to sell a product to a customer. I think that was when everything changed for me. I went into my last year of secondary school with a completely different mindset. I started viewing school like a game. This was also the year I had my GCE O-levels examinations, which is basically the British SAT. I stopped viewing the examination as that big of a deal, when in reality it was probably more important than I realized it would be. I think it was the mindset that I had of it is what it is that helped me throughout that tumultuous year, because I ironically started becoming more confident with my studies because I felt like I no longer had the thought of doing well for the examinations at the back of my head constantly. It helped me stay more calm and relaxed, which in turn helped me study better for the examination. And as a result, I had more confidence and self-belief, which made me do better for my examinations. I also want to talk about a point I brought up earlier, which was failure. Failure generally has a negative connotation within society. I think one very big difference I have from kids my age is that I'm not scared to fail, simply because I believe in failing forward. I've seen kids in my school do everything they can just to not fail an examination, but when they fail the examination, they take it so hard it's almost like the end of the world for them, compared to someone like me who doesn't really give a shit about failing because I've been failing on a somewhat consistent basis from when I was younger. I know it's ironic, but I personally think that for in-school exams, by which I mean just exams that aren't on a national scale, it was an advantage for me to fail rather than barely pass the examination. Barely passing the examination would inflate my ego, and I'll think like, oh, I'm good, I passed the examination. And as a result, I'll become complacent and not put in as much effort the next time I took the examination. Whereas me failing the exam would cause some trauma, because like what Tate said, trauma is the only way for a man to improve. Failing the exam would strike fear in me, and I would dive deeper into the mistakes I had made in order for me to bounce back. And bounce back I did. Of course, coming from an Asian household, it was practically considered a sin to fail your examinations, but I digress. I mean, due to me having encountered failures in the past, I was no longer that scared to fail because I knew I would always bounce back, somehow, while learning from my mistakes simultaneously. It's simple. Life is basically like a sine curve. We go through highs and lows. Even though I don't really consider failing examination as a low, but we move. I think the combination of me not placing that big of an emphasis on the final exam and allowing myself to make mistakes in the process enabled me to do pretty well for the examination. I mean, I ended up finishing top 10 in my class, which I was very content with. From rock bottom of the class to top 10, I'd consider that somewhat successful. I think confidence and self-belief also played a crucial role in my journey. I remember a few times where I knew I had not fully understood all the content of a particular subject, but I went into the examination hall just believing in myself. It was more of the same during the days leading up to the result collection. Everyone seemed to be more worried than me. Everyone was trying to convince themselves like, oh, I'm not gonna do well, But there was just me who was just sitting there, confident, telling everyone, oh, I know I got this. I dare say I was probably one of the only people that wasn't particularly worried about results. I mean, to say that I wasn't worried at all would be a lie, because it is human nature to worry about things that are somewhat relevant to your life. I was trying to tell everyone around me to think positively in order for positive things to happen, but I had never seen such a large group of people trying to convince themselves that they were losers. Like, bro, just think positive about your results. Don't talk down on yourself. Have some confidence, yeah? And I think due to my confidence and self-belief, I managed to do decent for my exams. But now a little less about me, and more on the topic at hand. The traditionalist way of thinking is that we should try our best to get good grades, get to a good university, and then get a good job. But as times change, we see more outliers for that case. And some people in our generation are influenced by the outliers. As a result, they feel it is not a necessity to do well in school and go to a good college because they believe they're going to make it just because they've seen the anomalies. Truth be told, I feel that they are wrong for wanting to be one of these outliers so bad. I'm not saying give up on your dreams, I'm just saying have practical thinking. The average Joe without a plan isn't going to be the next Zuckerberg or Gates, so not studying hard to get decent grades might be a foolish decision if you don't have a plan in mind. People nowadays are very susceptible to influence, especially when they see someone living their dream. They might just try to use their lives as a step-by-step guide, which they will try to copy and paste, but to no avail. Mind you, both Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of Harvard, not some random school. And here you are saying you want to drop out of your top 200 university or some random shithole of a high school. Both Gates and Zuckerberg dropped out because they had better things to invest their time in. And most of you that drop out because you can't stand investing your time in school because of previous failures and pent-up anger towards the educational system. Lastly, the most important part of the video, mental health. I'd say mentally I'm pretty healthy. I mean, school is the least of my concerns in the midst of my personal problems. But I have seen what grades can do to someone's mental health. There are generally two types of people in school. The crazy mugger that studies for 8 to 10 hours a day, basically just eat, sleep, study, shit, repeat. And the lazy student that studies only 2 to 4 hours a day. I was that quote-unquote lazy student. And my mental health was actually much better than the people around me. I've seen people get so stressed out over the big exam to the point where they were harming themselves. Like, I'm talking literally about to commit the not alive. Now, I'm not talking down on mental health. Mental health is probably the most important thing in our lives. I'm just saying, putting your mental health at stake for a piece of paper, is that really worth it? Like, even though I didn't do as much studying as those muggers, I still ended up doing better for the examination. And guess what? I barely had to sacrifice my mental health. I also have to give credit to the 80-20 rule, where you give 20% of your effort and receive 80% of the reward. Here's an example. Every single time I wanted to, let's say, study for 2 hours, I would only end up studying about 30 minutes to an hour, due to me being a master procrastinator. During that short period of time when I was actually in the flow state, I managed to get everything I was studying, like everything I read, I could process and understand. Imagine if I had the mental capacity to do that for 6 hours. I'd be the fucking valedictorian. Ironically, it was actually due to my procrastination that actually helped with my mental health. because I just couldn't envision myself not having a life and just studying for every single free second I have. Not throwing shade to those people that study with every free second they have. Just please pace yourself. I don't want any of you to suffer mentally. To be fair, suffering mentally also has quite a bit to do with school itself. Schools can do a lot of things to improve the mental health of their own students, but they won't. Studies have shown that starting school at a later time can help boost students' productivity and improve on their mental health. But will the school push back the starting time? No. Putting up posters relating to mental health in the place that causes most mental health issues in teens makes it a little bit counterintuitive. Specifically for my school, they have like a mental health session randomly during the week, and it's usually like the last lesson of the day. Like, they would try to tell us about meditation and taking a break. Well, during the previous lessons, they would just tell us if we don't study hard and fuck up the big exam, our futures will look bleak. Kinda ironic, don't you think? To everyone watching this, do remember to take a break sometimes. Your mental health is actually much more important than you think. Just remember, don't always focus on the destination. If you don't stop and smell the roses once in a while, you'll actually miss out on a lot of the beautiful things that happened around you. Alright, I love you guys. Mwah. Bye bye.